Central College, and also there was a proposal to provide free scholarship. That has helped tremendously for the poor people to access to higher education. I don't want to name, but that you can see. I think you must be knowing that how many people have got benefit out of this free education and this concept of central college, right? So that despite of that, you can see even today, you don't see equity or equality, equity access, equality, the way of resource allocation. Resource allocation in urban areas also. I am not sure whether I have mentioned to you the other day. Maybe you find resource allocation, maybe rural people, there is discrimination. Even in urban areas also, you can see discrimination. Some school, they are known as popular school, and also they got a bigger share of the education resources. Maybe when you come to teachers, when you come to equipment, this will come to money, other facilities like swimming pool, etc. You find they get better, they are in a better position. But maybe some school, even in urban areas, of course, they don't get that much of benefit from the resource allocation, right? Then you can see some sort of inequality in urban areas as well. So rural areas, of course, that problem has been there throughout. Now urban area also you can, because of that you can't see equality in the provision of education by the public sector, although it is available free of charge, right? And also, then of course, there will be a question up to what level this free education is to be provided by the government, public sector, whether it's up to elementary level or the secondary level or tertiary level, university level, higher education. Higher education. Maybe in some countries, there had been argument with regard to provision of education at higher education, right? Higher level, university level, whether that is to be provided free of charge or whether that to be charged, right? In the case of Sri Lanka, of course, it is to be provided up to university level, first degree level. I think everybody knows that. But in the case of Australia, there had been a discussion sometimes back, maybe 20 years ago, 23 years ago, somewhere in 1989, whether education is to be provided, university education is to be provided free of charge or otherwise students should be charged. Because there had been a political debate, because there are two parties in Australia, Labour Party and Conservative Party. What has happened when Conservative Party comes to power, they want to charge a fee from the university student. Then the Labour Party, they don't want to charge, they used to waive off that. So that has been continuing for some time, because when Labour Party comes, they will waive off the tuition fee. When Conservative come, they will reintroduce the tuition fee. That problem has gone. But in 1989, the then government, Labour government, they wanted to solve this problem, solve those people. Then, of course, I'm not going to tell you the entire story over here, but what they wanted to look into, some sort of solution to the problem, whether students should be provided free education up to university or whether students should be charged at university education. Finally, what they have decided, because it has taken about 1 year to make the decision, right? 1 year to make that decision, because they want to consult many stakeholders in the policy making process, education, authorities, that's mean university authorities, then student bodies, then trade union, parent association, trade and commerce, area, etc. They want to consult all the people. They can contribute to the decision-making process concern. Finally, they have decided, yes, university education should be, that means tuition fee should be paid. Tuition fee should be paid by everyone. Then there was a problem. How about the poor people? That means parents who cannot afford to pay tuition fee for their student concern. children concerned. Then there was a proposal. Proposal was that, okay, let government will uh, be made available, right? That means some loan, very concessional loan, right? Those who want to pursue higher education and their parent cannot afford to pay tuition fee, let them have a loan, concessional loan, but they can pay after graduation, maybe in installment or in full. So that's the decision they have, uh, uh, arrived at the end, among other things, because they have certain objective. Because what is the justification they had? Because higher education, university education is to be provided only limited number of people, right? Therefore, they should not be paid with taxpayers' money. That means the taxpayers mean all the people concerned. They pay taxes, and also there's no justification. Only those who can afford to pay and those who can't afford to pay are getting equal access to education in that case. That is not fair. Therefore, the parent who can afford to pay, let them pay. Those who can't afford to pay, let them make this new arrangement. Have a loan, and also then of course they can pay back after graduation. And also in the case of Australia, after graduation, employment is guaranteed in the economy elsewhere, right? That's why not in the government sector, even in the case of private sector. And also they cannot default the payment. They have to pay. Those who have borrowed money from the government, they have to pay because they have a social number. Wherever they get employment, they can be easily traced. And also in the case of decision-making body, the tax authority, they were also part of that, right? And also they thought that because of this, education to be contributed by the users concerned, then it would lead to quality improvement, because the university was they wanted to improve the quality of the university education. And also now you have more money and you need not depend on the government budget, and also you can have your own education program at the university with the view to have education in excellence, right? That's some of the objective they wanted to achieve, right? Then they have implemented that decision and they want to evaluate the success of the provision of education in this way, new way. And also then they found that that's the excellent arrangement with a view to providing university education, right? And also for that matter, at that time, they had the Higher Education and Employment Training Ministry, right? You can see the label of the ministry, Higher Education and Employment Training Ministry. So that's how they have done that. And also it has become a very successful program. I know that. I think Australian education has achieved the status of excellence. And also even many children from Sri Lanka and other neighboring countries, their destination for higher education is one of the destination is Australia. So that's how, because still government is providing. It does not mean that a student will have to pay the full university cost. It is not. They are only part of the tuition fee they are supposed to pay, right? That's contributory. Justification is that because everybody is not going through the university education system. Primary and secondary, yes, because everybody is going to get benefit because of that, because the children of all families will have to go through the primary and secondary education. Justification is there. When you come to university, it is not the case. All the children are not going through the higher education. So therefore, I'm just telling you that there are other alternatives. It does not mean that we have to copy what was done in Australia, but we have to re-examine, because even in the case of Sri Lanka, we may be advanced level result. If you look at advanced level, over 300 million, right? 300,000 students sit for the AL exam. But when you come to qualification, maybe more than half of that number is qualified for university education. But if you look at the university admission, maybe about 10% of that number. Maybe this time, of course, it is said that they are going to increase up to 40,000 of the university intake. But other students, of course, they although they are qualified at the entrance, but they are not getting access to university because of the restriction we have with regard to university capacity. So therefore, again, maintenance of this university education as a free provider, then of course we too have the same problem. One can question whether university education should be provided as in the case of primary and secondary education, right? That question remain, but there should be a solution to that also. And also, apart from that also, quality improvement, excellence in education, that has also become a problem. Many people are talking about the quality of higher education in Sri Lanka, especially university education. Whether after graduation, will they be able to find an employment for them, right? That's another, because employment opportunities for the graduate, especially art and science graduate, very limited. That's the problem over here. Then that is to be, when of course, to overcome that difficulty, of course, you have to re-examine the, quality of education, right? So those issues are there. That's why we have to re-examine, right? And also, it's okay that let the government provide subsidies and other facilities for higher education. At the same time, you have to find solution to the existing problem in the higher education, because that is to be carried out with taxpayers' money, right? Then, of course, education, should the education be provided privately? If that is the case, of course, you know the difficulties. If that is the case, of course, you'll find maybe primary and secondary education. If that is to be provided by the private sector providers, then of course access will be a problem. Maybe those who can't afford, that's mean poor people, they will not be able to get full benefit of education. Maybe they will not be able to pay. Their income is not sufficient for them to pay for education, especially higher education. Primary and secondary, sometimes they can, but if they are to pay for that, of course, maybe they are going to, miss the opportunities that they could achieve through education. Those are some of the issues we have to discuss under education, provision of education, justification for the government to provide education in Sri Lanka. Right. Subsidies in school education, right? Subsidies in, because justification for government intervention in education, you know that because maybe poor people, because they have no access, but you find uniform textbook, because that is to be given to the needy people, uniform and textbook. But textbooks are given to all the students, uniforms are given to all the school, shoes are given to some categories of school, likewise. But once you come to this universal program, like uniform and textbook concern, with those who can afford to purchase, why should they be given, free, uniform and textbook at the expense of taxpayers' money? That question remains unanswered, right? Then, of course, you can say that another problem that has emerged recently, how much money that parent will have to, allocate for education. You know that government education is free of charge, true. At the same time, almost all the students from primary, secondary level, you can see parent will have to pay for their private tuition. On the one hand, government is providing free education. On the other hand, parents are keen to, because education is highly competitive, especially advanced level, and also that is to enter the university. That's a cutoff point. Then, of course, that because of this acute competition, you can see private tuition has come. Then, of course, parents are keen to get their children because they pay, whether poor children or the well-to-do children from well-to-do families concerned, both are paying for tuition fee. And also, when you look at the, class size, also another problem, because in the case of government, schools, of course, you say that there is a higher upper number for the class. About now, of course, there has been a discussion to say that it should be about 35. But now, of course, you can see education authority say that you can go up to 45. And also, once you look at tuition fee, sometimes 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, something like. There's no limit, right? Is another way of education provision. We don't know whether it's really worth, useful, and student focused, or otherwise it's basically it has become business. So that has to be examined. I think President recently has highlighted the problem that is to be examined. Another problem we have with regard to higher education. Then, of course, textbooks and education, of course, very much better to have target group, right? Who need textbook, who need uniform, who need, shoes and other facilities concerned. If that's the case, so that is to be identified separately and also make arrangement for them to have, some sort of, vouchers or other mode of payment. You can combine with the other welfare program package. And also, if that is the case, of course, it's easy, right? And then, of course, maybe allocated money to improve the quality of education among the poor people concerned. You have to target them and give them some support by way of vouchers or other, right? Maybe welfare benefit. And also, you find lot of, other facilities also. Maybe midday meal, then tablet computers. Sometimes back it was in the talk to provide tablet computers for maybe student at advanced level classes, etc. Likewise, when you look at subsidies to education, you find because there's a need to rationalize the distribution of subsidies among the school children concerned. Right. Then the education, of course, we said public good, or it could be considered as public good or private good. And both developing and developed countries, you find the provision of education by the government concerned. And because of this reason, we have, I think, discussed previously also, because of the benefit to society. Socialization program, student get socialized because of education. That's why government had to intervene, or government had to subsidize, or government had to support the provision of education with taxpayers' money. And also, student will become well-informed citizen. It's worth because if you have educated citizen, and also easy to find employment, maybe in the private sector, in the market concern, because they can easily read and write and understand. So that benefit is there compared to other countries concerned. And also democratic participation. Because through education, of course, that means you know how to elect your own representative. Democratic participation means that elect your own representative. That's somewhat questionable. Whether our people, although they have the ability to read, write, and somewhat understanding, whether they can comprehend, right? They can make a judgment with regard whom to vote. Democratic participation, still we have a representative democracy. Then, of course, we have to elect our own representative. Then, of course, we have to make a right judgment, because now during the election campaign, of course, you know that different parties, we are in a multi-party system. Different parties present their plan of action when they come to power. That's what we call manifesto. Then, of course, they are providing the practical or implementable proposals over there, right? Then, of course, whether voters, that's mean those who are going to vote at election, can they comprehend when many promises are given, some unbelievable, right? And also if, uh, you know, maybe voters or parents cannot, maybe a majority of them cannot understand whether such promises could be implemented after election when if they come to power. So that's comprehension is not to be seen, right? So democratic participation does not mean that vote to somebody, vote to somebody. It's mean you have to participate and you have to vote for the one who can fulfill the promises given at the election campaign, right? So that democratic participation is a must. And also through education, of course, you can see productivity improvement, right? Their contribution to the production is also very important. Because of that, there's a reason for the government to provide education, maybe as a public good. Up to what level the government should provide education, right? Maybe commodity egalitarianism concept. That's mean equal access to all the people concerned, right? Because maybe you can't say that some people should get less because of they don't have income to support education, and those who are rich they can have a bigger share. No, it is not the case. But all the people should get a reasonable amount, right? Commodity egalitarian concept, a reasonable amount of education, elementary or secondary, right? A higher education, I have highlighted the problem over here, right? And who expense? Government expense or the expense of the parent concerned? Parent expense, of course, maybe poor people, that's a problem, right? That's why in some cases of higher education, as I explained to you, Australian experience, you can see maybe government could make different alternative arrangements. That's how you can see social justification. Private provision and subsidies. Because maybe even in the case of private sector, in the case of Sri Lanka, of course, you find government assisted school, government assisted school, government school, everything is to be provided by the government. Government assisted school, only portion of their cost is to be made by the government, maybe salaries of the teachers concerned, right? So that arrangement is there. You have private school as well. Everything is to be provided by the private provider. And also education, of course, you can see the benefit. If you look at the benefit, education, through education, you can change your destiny. If you have achieved a high education, maybe with that, it will help you get a better job or better employment opportunity. With that, you can see your income will go up. Once the income go up, of course, you can change your status in society, right? Because you can see education as a mean to change your status in society. You can see many people, right? Maybe from poor, family to a rich family, middle class family. But three, that is, they have achieved this through education. If that is provided by the government, maybe at the end, of course, you can see this social change, of course, right? So education and income, there is a strong connection. Education as a mean to move up in society, right? Through employment, through income, and through recognition, you can see education will help you as a mean to achieve higher status in society. Right. Again, of course, education is purely provided by the government. Yes, you can say that up to secondary level, at least, of course, is you can argue, say that it should be provided by the government with a view to having these principles of equity or equal access to education. If so, how about the cost and capacity of the government? Right, capacity, because again, of course, there's a problem because in some countries, maybe UNESCO has suggested that you have to allocate about 6% of your GDP for education, right? Maybe how practical that is in the case of Sri Lanka, right? Maybe in some countries, maybe highly developed countries, I think maybe even they haven't allocated 6% of their education, 5 point something like that. Maybe Scandinavian countries, I think their education is very much uh, high quality, and also they are also allocating about not somewhat below 6% of their GDP. In our situation, about 1 point is between 1 to 2 point of GDP. About 1.5, 1.6, 1 point less than 2% of your GDP. So that is because of uh, there's the poor level of our GDP. About our GDP about 9% of the government. If you look at the government expenditure, 9%, right? 9%. Out of that, of course, the government will have to provide other facilities as well, especially pure public good, that's been the national defense, then of course public security, and maybe other, payment for the public sector employees concerned, then maintenance of public utilities, then of course, at the same time, of course, you have to look after health, education, etc. Therefore, you find it very difficult to allocate a higher, maybe uh, portion of the government expenditure for education, right? That problem is also there. Then the provided by the government or the private sector. Then of course whether can be, because now of course now we say that it has been a discussion for sometimes that discussion has been there. Maybe some of the good to be provided by the private sector, because you can see education, both qualities of private good and also public good. And also, if that is the case, that it should be provided by the private sector. We have discussed the difficulties, if that's the case, that poor people are facing. But can we have a combination of private sector and public sector? That's what you could see even now in Sri Lanka, right? Maybe you can see emergence of many private sector education providers, right? Private sector providers concerned, right? Because I do not know whether maybe it's a good arrangement or bad arrangement. I can't forecast, because maybe some people are compelled to send their kids to private education because they don't get access to the government school. That's not that they are not willing to send their children to government school, but because of the denial of their access to government school. That then of course they have no other option but to send their children to private school. Some people, of course, they have their option. It's okay, right? Who should bear the cost of higher education? We have discussed that. Maybe if the government is going to maintain higher education institution, maybe government is going to bear the total cost. Government is going to bear only part of the total cost. Like let the users also using part of their cost. That's what I said. We could see in Australia. Then of course, with regard to those issues, of course, there is no consensus in society, right? Maybe in Sri Lanka, when you look at education or healthcare facilities, many people would argue it should be provided by the government. But the capacity of the government is another problem. Another problem. Right. That is what we have discussed regard to public good. And also maybe I have discussed education as one uh, private, publicly provided private good. Publicly provided private good that could be provided by the market as well, right? Maybe if you look at other this good like education, healthcare, of course you can say that it's up to the government and the public policy. They have to decide whether it is to be provided purely by the government or purely by the market or combination of both. I think many countries, of course, it should be combination of both. That's what with that we can conclude the discussions on public good. Any questions or any comment, you can take it up now before we move on to the next session. Any questions? Any point to be further? At what level? At what level you are referring to? University level. When you look at developed countries, private sector is doing better, right? Even in the case of the United States, you find most popular or prestigious universities are private universities. You can say Harvard, Columbia, Yale, Princeton, you name, yes, they have, right? They do have government universities, right? But maybe position when you come to prestige, of course, you find private sector, and also maybe private sector, of course, that's of course, you can't say that it's a business oriented university. You have to either recognize the difference of how to manage those universities. That means you don't find private owners, right? Then, of course, those are right. Yeah, because you find, yeah, such universities are manned by trustees, right? That means trustees are there because contribution by different stakeholders concerned, the trustees there, and they are managing the university because this is their intention is to improve the quality of education, excellent in education, not to make profit out of that. But they are making profit, otherwise they can't run the university. No? They true, but their intention is quite different. So that you could say that I think many developed countries, of course, private situations, their management is quite different. It's not like one own a business or something like that. And also trustees, of course, they run maybe because of the prestige, and also many, you know, that even the Harvard University, you have heard that Ambani family, Indian people, right, business people, they have put up one residential hall for the university. That kind of donation you can see from rich people, right? Rich people. And also that's a kind of, contribution by many, maybe sometime you find business people, business firms, and also families concerned. And also that's why they have a trustee to run the institution concerned. That's the difference you could see. But I do not know because maybe universities or higher education owned by a single family or something like that. I haven't heard of such situation in even in the case of developed countries concerned. But in our situation, of course, we don't know whether that kind of arrangement we are going to have to provide higher education or not. That maybe motive with regard to provision of education is different from developed countries to developing countries. That's the answer I can give you with regard to your question. Any other? If not, we will move on to the next session because this, government and market. Because when you come to provision of good, both government and market have a role to play. We have, when we are discussing in our previous discussion, of course, want to increase money circulation, and that's why economy has got contracted. And also now Monad Kane, he has suggested, he has said that government should intervene to increase money supply. If money circulation, you can see consequences, right? Consequences. But money supply will increase employment and labor productivity. Now, of course, money supply, then of course people can invest, and also investment, of course, then of course you can say demand for labor, and also investment, of course, on the other hand, you can see productivity. Productivity. That's I think a very simple thing that we have to even now, of course, if you look at to the views expressed by trade and commerce people in Sri Lanka, but they have said they have no access to investment, right? Because I think many a time ago they have had press, uh, uh, conferences, and they have repeatedly demand that government intervene to provide, uh, you know, uh, capital, access to capital at low interest rate, because interest rate by that time it was about 30%, and also now it has come to 15% or something like that. Because even if the interest rate is very high, firms, of course, they can't borrow and invest. Then, of course, if they can't invest, what will happen? There is no expansion in the economic activity. And also, then, of course, you can't see productivity, increase of productivity. Employment is not going to increase. Then, as a result, productivity is not going to increase. That is why I think you can see some truth in their argument. Give them access to, borrowing. That's what government did not listen. I think even now, of course, the government has not listened to their demand, right? Maybe government has a different view. So what maybe they are thinking in line with what Monad Kane has, said in the 1930s concern, right? Increase the employment and labor productivity. And when firms find profit, because they know that if they can earn profit is greater than the cost of labor and also other input as well, right? Then of course they would like to increase they would like to invest and also increase production, right? And then economy will come back to the normal situation. That's a simple argument he had at that time, right? And the theory was applied. This theory, what Monad Kane, he was a UK economics, United Kingdom, and also this application of his concept theory could be seen in the case of the United States, not in the United Kingdom, right? And also by that time, President Roosevelt, a wartime president of the United States, he wanted to follow the, concept advanced by Monad Kane, right? Because then, of course, during this period, workers got then, of course, he wanted to increase the money circulation and also he took some action, right? Maybe Federal Reserve, to increase money circulation, and also then, of course, increase labor, employment opportunities and labor productivity. So what has happened during this period? Workers got unionized because maybe earlier, of course, they have resigned because their paychecks has come down, and also now with the view to protect their right, get higher wages, they form into union and also demand from the employers to give more, right? That get higher wages concern. Then, of course, there had been a confrontation between this trade union and the firms concerned, employers, right? Because the employers and also the trade union are demanding higher wages, but reluctant on the part of the employers to pay higher salaries, higher wages concern. So what has happened? The something. Let me see. President Roosevelt took a different view, right? And he wanted to support the trade union, right? And orders firms to increase wages, right? You can see that because maybe he wanted to follow the formula given by, or the concept given by Monad Kane, and also with a view to increase employment and also increase production, and also by this time, of course, he has taken action to increase money supply through the Federal Reserve, that's mean Federal Bank, and also at the same time, when there was a trade dispute, the trade union dispute, he took the side of the trade union, ordered firm to increase wages concern, right? And then, of course, at the same time, of course, what has happened, the concept of collective agreement, this agreement between the employer and the employee, that's mean trade union, they will come to an agreement to increase wages, and also at the same time, they have to increase productivity, right? And also firms such as Ford, and also they were reluctantly increase wages. At the same time, they followed a different technique to increase their profit, right? What they have done, because I think they had a bigger labor force, and also they encourage the increase of production. At the same time, increase of consumption of uh, products they had. That means they were producing cars. And also what they wanted to do, they encourage their employees to purchase cars, right? Then of course you find market from within, right? From market from within, right? Increase wages and encourage production and consumption of what they have produced by the employees themselves by way of purchasing their cars. Right. So that's how they have, there's some sort of innovation with regard to their business related activities concerned. Although business did not like president intervention, because as a matter of concept at that time, of course, government intervention is not tolerated. But what has happened, the president intervention has contributed to, I think, get the American economy recovered from Great Depression, and also it has become maybe the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. It has become the world number one economy, powerful economy. Even now, of course, it's maintaining number one position, right? Now other competitors are behind, right? But at that time, it was the world number one economy. So that is how the Monad Kane concept with regard to government intervention in crisis situation, help countries to get out of that crisis situation, right? That was the situation, Monad Kane concept. And also government, during this period, what they have done in order to get rid of this crisis situation, they have used both monetary and fiscal policy instrument, right, to address the economic crisis. Monetary policy, that increase money supply. That's what he has said, increase money supply with government intervention, done away with gold standard, because money supply based on the ownership of gold at that time, that was removed. And on the other hand, with regard to fiscal policy, right, tax and tariff, right, tax and tariff concern. Tax, what Roosevelt has done, because there had been, because of this crisis situation, some firm did not want to invest their money. They kept their money in reserve. And also what president has did, tax such firms, right? If they are not, if they have their saving, that means money that they did not invest, then that is to be tax, right? Tax. Then of course then of course that's a kind of indirect incentive for them to invest that money. And also on the other hand, when you come to export production, right? Export, they have decided, government has decided to reduce tariff for export. Maybe during the crisis, because the tariff was increased for export. Now, of course, they have reduced that as well. And also, that is how they have been able to get rid of Great Depression in the 1930s concern. And Keynesian theory was widely recognized, right? Because Keynesian theory was widely recognized until the 1960s, right? That's been about 25 years, 30 years, of course, there is no another counter argument with regard to, Keynesian concept or Keynesian theory, how to address government intervention during a crisis situation. But at the same time, maybe in the after the 1960s, you can see certain, counter argument with regard to Keynesian theory by well-known economics, very conservative, I would say, very conservative capitalist economy. I think you have heard of him, Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman from Chicago School of Economy. Chicago School is a very conservative school of economics, and also they are trying to defend the market system at any cost, I would say, right? Milton Friedman, if you look at what he has done during his lifetime, because he died at the age of 94, he died in 2006, and also he had been, I think, advisor to, I don't know, about 50 odd countries of the world, I would say. I can't count the number. Maybe Latin American countries, maybe Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, etc. You find a lot of these Latin American countries, then Russia, China, then Eastern European countries, right? And also maybe some African countries. He has advised many government, because what he wanted to promote the market system, right? Maybe if you look at what has happened in Chile, you know that I think he was a socialist president. He was removed by a coup, right? Removed by a coup, and also to install capitalist system or the market system. The Milton Friedman, it is said that he was the advisor to Pinochet. You can see, right, how Chile has got into that problem, because that is to have the not to have a socialist system in Latin America, but to move on to the capitalist system. And also Milton Friedman had a role in that process as well, right? In many countries, right? And also he was recognized as a strong proponent of the pre-market economy. And also it is believed that his contribution to economy has been able to, I think, assist about 6 billion people to get out of world poverty, right? Because of this pre-market system, that's what he has said. 6 billion, it is said that, I think, one of his funeral orators have said so, right? That his theory, his contribution helped many people to get out of poverty, right? Because of his free market system. And he was of the view that, because he had a different interpretation with regard to Great Depression, right? Because what he has argued, the government, right, the mismanagement has created this situation. The Great Depression in the United States, he was talking about the United States, that was because of the government mismanagement. What does it mean? Because inability, because government mismanagement in the sense, because when there was a crisis, the Fed or the Federal Reserve Bank did not do its job proper. And also government allowed Fed to do so, because the government did, Fed allowed the other bank to limit money circulation, not to give loan concern, right? Not to give loan. That's the problem they had. And also because of that, this limited money circulation has created this Great Depression. That's what he has said, right? And also, that's not because of the inability of the private sector economy, but because of the government mismanagement of the economy, especially during the economic crisis. That's what Milton Friedman has argued, right? Then, of course, the theory rests on three basic ideas. The Friedman theory, right? Significance of how much money in circulation, right? It is the response, money circulation, because that's the job of the central bank in the case of Federal Reserve Bank, in the case of the United States, and it's the responsibility of the government. Responsibility of the government. They have then money circulation, because if money circulation is limited, then of course there will be a consequence on the investment, because investment will be limited. Investment is limited, of course, you can see a less lack of employment opportunity. Then, of course, economy is not going to get expanded, right? So that leads to this kind of situation. When the bank fail in the US, the reduction of money supply caused by because reduction of money prices to fall because of that, right? That is the recession, right? And also Fed allowed the reduction of money supply by the other financial institution, private bank, etc. According to Friedman, it is the job of the government to bail out the economy by supplying enough money, because that's a requirement, because it's the responsibility of the government to ensure that money is being supplied sufficiently, right? Sufficiently, because with the view to uh, uh, not to fall prices, right? Not to fall prices, right? The workers and firms, from their expectation of wages and prices on their past experience with inflation or deflation, because what has happened during the Great Depression is that workers compare what they have received previously and what they are getting now, because firms has reduced their paycheck. So then, of course, while comparing what was received at that time, what is being received now, they have decided to voluntarily leave the firm's concern. That's what you said with regard to this creation of this contraction, right? The recession occurs, prices fall, and firms reduce wages of employment, right? Having compared the reduction in the previous wages, they begin to realize that their wages have come down, and also decided to firms do. That's what it has happened, right? Then an economy has a rate of unemployment, because you can't say 100% employment in any economy, right? Natural rate of unemployment in the long run, maybe 4% or 5% of the total workforce, right? Unemployment. When expansion in money supply at low interest rate, and then of course you can say which would lead to investment and consumption, because of if investment is there, employment opportunity is there, you can see consumption will increase and causing employment and output to increase, because you can see the relationship there, right? Money supply, employment opportunities, then of course the increase of income, then of course you can see consumption also will increase, then of course you can see output also increase. That's relationship he was talking about. This increase is temporary and natural rate of unemployment return, right? Then because of that you can read natural employment of unemployment return, right? So that's what he has said. And Keynesian and Friedman theory on fiscal policy, right? Fiscal policy. Keynesian fiscal policy prescription is that recession is recession, the government should run deficit. Another area that Friedman wanted to disagree with Keynes, right? Keynes, a fiscal policy, what he has said, okay, during the crisis situation, government should borrow and also so increase money circulation. Borrow mean you have a deficit budget, right? Deficit budget, right? If that is the case, but what that is what Keynes has advised: borrow and invest, right? And then, once you borrow, of course, you have a deficit budget, and also borrowing. And Friedman did not agree with this idea. What he has said: if the government is going to borrow, then there's a demand for loan, and also as a result, of course, interest rate in the market will go up, right? With the government intervention, they are going to borrow, and also in the market, and also interest rate will go up. Then increase in interest rate will cause decrease in private sector demand, right? For loans, right? Because when the interest rate goes up, maybe private sector, of course, there are tendencies that when the interest rate goes up, of course, they are not going to borrow. That decrease in interest rate, increase in interest rate will affect differently, right? Will cause decrease in private sector economic activity, right? They are not going to borrow and invest. What Friedman says is that the Keynes stabilization policy is counterproductive, because what his argument is that there should be a surplus budget, not the deficit budget. Surplus budget, then of course, government does not want to borrow. Then of course you can see, then the interest rate will come down. Then that is beneficial to the private sector. Private sector, right? That's beneficial to private sector. Government has surplus, then of course you can see increased interest rate will come down, and also private sector activity investment expand, right? I think this is what I think the most important debate between the two. What Keynes has said, what uh, Milton Friedman has said with regard to same issue, right? Same issue. But maybe when you come to Keynes, of course, you can say Keynes concept theory has helped the United States to get out of crisis in the 1930s and become number one uh, economy of the world. But when you come to Friedman, there are certain reservations with regard to that, right? Certain reservation with regard to that. We can't say that maybe government intervention is not required. Let the private sector do that. Of course, even in the case of the United States, we don't see that Friedman formula has been applied all the time concerned, because there are instances where even in the 1998, right? 1998, during Obama period, of course, government has decided to intervene in the market because there had been economic crisis. How the government has intervened, then of course increase money supply, and also providing what we call stimulus package to the, because some firms during that period collapsed. Then of course they should lead to some sort of economic crisis. Then of course government had intervened with a stimulus package, and also that's okay. Again, you can see some sort of government intervention, despite Milton Friedman's recommendation not to intervene. But government did not consider it as a temporary thing, but the government wanted to intervene. Right. Then, of course, any questions with regard to these two concepts, concept by Milton Friedman and concept by Monad Keynes? Is it clear? Because it's a very important area with regard to the role of the government. Yeah. Money supply, that's mean what he has said, because in that's of course you have seen that MMT, modern money supply theory. I think that is applicable to United States, but I think we should not be misled with this MMT theory. I think Sri Lanka also applied that, no result. But in the case of the United States, I think it will work because their money is worldwide. right? Our money is delivered to Sri Lanka, right? Because they can print, but MMT, I have a book over here. It's written by a lady, I think. Not this one. Yeah. Anyway, there's a lady. He was talking about MMT theory, but he has said in the case of the United States, they can print any amount of money because that's the dollar. No? Dollar is used worldwide, right? Then of course they can, in case of if they want to increase money supply, they can print and issue, no problem, right? If they want to recall, they can also do that, right? They can by way of that's what our government has done by issuing bond, etc. Right? That our government did. But issue is that they say that is how, because there should be a limit, that money supply. But Milton Friedman was speaking only about money supply. It's the job of, because he didn't say that, he didn't mention anything about MMT. But what he has said is up to the Federal Reserve to ensure that enough money circulation is there in the economy, right? Without allowing economy to contract. So that's what he has said. But but he was not talking about this deficit budget. Deficit budget. Maybe if the government is not going to borrow from the market, the only instrument that the government has to print money. But in the case of the United States, they can print because dollar is recognized worldwide in the international transaction. So they can do so, right? But that is not applicable in to other countries because their currency is not recognized in any other country. Maybe in the case of European Union, yeah, because they are using euro in their country is concerned. But even in the case, of course, you can't say that they have encouraged when there had been crisis in some member countries like Greece, Italy, Spain, Ireland, etc. I think I haven't read any book or article which says that European Bank has printed more, allowed, that's mean European Bank has increased euro supply. That's mean euros. That's mean euro is to be, I think, that's a kind of agreement between the European Union, the monetary union. Because these member countries, of course, they can't, because that money is to be provided by the European Union, Euro concern. Then money, they haven't, there's no instance say that they have increased, they have allowed the that's mean what we call, they didn't have their own currency, right? They use a euro, that is Spain, Italy, Greece, etc. They have used their own, they have euro, not their own currency. They had own currency, but they surrendered to euro. So then of course that's another problem. I think somewhere there was another book, I think, euro. I think I think it's a book written by Joseph Stiglitz. It's called Euro. Euro, because this another condition is that because they didn't allow to have their own currency. If that's the case, of course, there could have been different scenario, right? That is with regard to this economic crisis in the 2010 and after that in Greece, Italy, Spain, Ireland, etc. That's a different. But money supply, in the case of the United States, of course, they can increase money supply by printing. MNT is applicable over there. But Milton Friedman has not mentioned that. Only thing he has mentioned to increase money supply, right? But he didn't. It means that indirectly not to borrow from the market, right? The deficit financing he didn't encourage. He has said if that is the case, it's a counterproductive because the private sector can't borrow from the market concern. Therefore, that means increase money supply means printing and circulate. That's what I guess. Right. Any other questions with regard to these two concepts by Keynes and Friedman? Is it clear with regard to the role of the government in a crisis situation? Yes. What is the other book? Yeah, I have this. If anyone is keen to read what Joseph Stiglitz has said with regard to this crisis in Greece, Italy, Spain, Ireland, etc., some discussion is there in the book, his book called The Euro and its threat to future of Europe by Joseph Stiglitz, right? I think it's worth reading, but some additional information with regard to crisis situation, how to get rid of economic crisis. He was very critical about the role of IMF and European Central Bank and European Central Bank, that means EU Central Bank, right? EU Central Bank and other institutions, because three of them had followed the IMF formula to get rid of this economic crisis of those 4 or 5 countries concerned in the in the 2010, 11, 12, etc. Still, I think they are in a crisis situation, right? Because Stiglitz has a different view. But he has said the formula given by IMF and other two parties concerned is austerity measures. That's mean cut down, cut down. Cut down, then of course now increase that's mean government revenue and also cut down other facilities concerned, austerity measures, because he is not in agreement with regard to that. That is why it's worth reading with a view to look at Sri Lankan situation. Sri Lankan situation, because we have also followed the same IMF formula, right? IMF formula. Then the cut down and also privatization, etc. And also what Stiglitz has said that no, instead of austerity measures, cut down, and also you better expand. I think I am also of the view that you have to expand. So, for example, in order to expand the economy, you have to increase production. If you want to increase production, up to now we have learned that you have to give access to capital. Who are the investors? The private sector, not the government sector, right? Private sector should have access to capital at the low interest rate, right? It is only then you can see investment, and also you can see generation of employment, then the labor production will go up. Then of course you can see, especially with regard to maybe for local consumption as well as export. So that's the way, and you can see what Stiglitz. I am of the view that even maybe I think even European countries, I don't think that they have followed. Even now, of course, we are not finding alternative ways for us to get rid of this problem, right? Maybe we are strictly following being passive recipient of European, this IMF loan. We are strictly following the formula prescribed by them. So that's the problem we have. I think at the same time, if we are not going to, increase the production, right? Only we are sticking to the contraction, right? Not encouraging the producers, that's been private sector people, we will not be able to get rid of this problem in the near future. I don't know whether there could be a natural way of solving the problem concerned. How long it will take, I do not know. Maybe 5 years, 6 years. But if you have a planned activity, right, encourage investment, encourage money circulation in the sense, money circulation to the hand of the business sector people to engage in more business, expand the business activity. That's what I would see that. So in that respect, of course, you have to look at other way. Can you share this to and previously? I will, yes, I will certainly, I will do that. Okay, right. Okay, I hope you got a good understanding about what Kane has said, what Milton Friedman has said. I think it's very much better for you to read a little bit about Milton Friedman, right? I think he's, venerated in the conservative world, right? Conservative world, because he was there, I think, the martyr, right? With regard to economic crisis, etc. Because they have a separate Chicago school is like that, right? I think they have produced many, economics, all are very much conservative economics, not like Stiglitz or some sort of progressive economics. And then you can say that, right? Okay, then of course we will look at the size of the government. Because when you say government and the market, of course, we know what they are, but we have to look at the size of the government as well. There are two ways to look at this. One is by number and also by public expenditure. By number, of course, if you look at Sri Lankan situation, we have a public service employees about 1.4 million. 1.4 million. And now, of course, government has felt that it is too much for us, right? Then, of course, but anyway, government has not told us what would be the ideal number, 1 million or less. So, but only government has said it's too much, maybe because of the financial constraint to pay their salaries and other benefits. It may be the reason, right? Not work-wise. And also, what the government has done, when you have a large number of public servants, encourage them to voluntarily move out or resign. Move out there, because there has been a government circular. Okay, you can move out from the government service temporarily for a period of 5 years, and also your job is reserved for you once you come back, and of course there is no problem with regard to your seniority, your promotional prospect, etc. You'll be getting all the increment, salary increment, etc. Once you are reinstated, right? So that's it. That's one way. But it so happened sometimes back in the 90, I believe in the 1990s also, 1980s, I believe, 88 or somewhere, right? Government wanted to maybe again, maybe on the recommendation of those international lending agencies, I can't remember, World Bank or the IMF. And also at that time also there had been a circular for voluntary retirement with some perk. And also government even this time has not learned from the lesson we have had from that circular, right? What has happened at that time, those who can find an employment outside, that's mean professionally or academically or technically qualified people, they have took the opportunity and left the public service. This time also, you can see same thing, right? Those that competent people who can find employment opportunities inside or outside, they have taken the opportunity. That is why some doctors, engineers, and IT people, maybe some managerial grade people, they have found the opportunity and they have left the country. But this is, that's mean you haven't made any condition in the sense, maybe we need services of some people, right? Some people. Then, of course, some people in the sense, maybe you want to have the minimum number of some, professionally qualified people to serve our government, right? Maybe doctors, engineers, scientists, even the managerial level people. You have to if you allow them to live without any condition concern, then there could be a problem. There could be a problem. Now, of course, you could say that maybe some doctors, it is said that they have taken the opportunity of the such concession given by the government circular. They have left the country. Others also, some people, of course, they have uh, left the job also. That means they have vacated the job and now taken the opportunity to leave the country. That's a different scenario. That is because of some other issues concerned. But once you are trying to reduce the number of employees, of course, that is to be done very carefully. So you have to ascertain first how many people we want for the government organization concerned, maybe department, ministry, or the corporation board, etc. How many people we want. Maybe you have to identify the excess, right? That is what UK has done during Margaret Thatcher's period, right? And also they didn't allow those people to go out. What they have done, identify the redundant people, about number in about 500,000 people, and also they were given the golden handshake. And in addition, of course, they were retrained to find employment elsewhere in the economy, right? That's been contributed to the private sector. That's a contribution to the economic concern. That's what they have done. Our people haven't done the opposite, right? Because I think we haven't, even when you are going to get benefit of such opportunity, of course, you have not studied the consequences of your action, right? That's the problem. Because maybe because the increase in the public sector up to about 1.4, 1.5, that is because of the political intervention. Not that the organization wanted that number of people, right? Because maybe if you can see this increase in the middle and lower level, right? Middle and lower level, not the higher level. Higher level, of course, you don't say that. Higher level, that is to be governed by the service minute concern. Of course, you can't recruit in that way. Maybe some increases there, but that way. But lower level and maybe clerical level and the this minor grade level, of course, that is the political interference, and politician wanted to recruit more and more to the organization with the view to providing voters for their supporters concern. So that is how you can see increase in the public sector employment. But that is to be, that's the mistake, or that's the deliberate action of the politician concerned again. On the one hand, politicians have been instrumental in ruining the economy. On the other hand, of course, they have been instrumental in ruining the public sector employment as well. Public sector, you can say economy and the public sector, right? So that is how. Well, what I wanted to say, when you look at the size of the government, maybe you have to look at the actual number of public servants we want, and also whether that can be tolerated with the taxpayers' money, because they are to be paid by the taxpayers' money, right? Then, of course, if that is the case, and what is needed, and also whether we have the capacity to maintain them. So that's how you have to decide the number. Then the second point, number of public expenditure, amount of public expenditure, because public expenditure, we know that another problem we have as a percentage of GDP. If you look at 2018, I think there's no big difference with regard to figures concerned, right? Public expenditure about 20% of GDP. Even now, of course, it will be in the same range, 19 or 20, right? And also, if you look at the income, it will be about 9%. Then there's a gap of 10% of GDP, and also that's a deficit, right? Then, of course, you have a problem, because maybe if you look at the public expenditure, right? Then, of course, you have, because maybe 1/5 of the economy is the public expenditure. Maybe some countries, of course, it will go up to about 40%, right? Maybe Europe countries about 39, 40%, but our country about 20% public expenditure, right? Then country's expenditure. You find, of course, I have given you the website, and also you can see country's expenditure by country wise. Of course, you can see if you go through this website. Then, of course, normally government will have to provide public good and services such as national defense and public good, of course, we have discussed, and also law and order, social well-being, social welfare programs, because that's the functions of the government. If that is the case, of course, you have to have, you have to incur expenditure, and also you have to have resources as well. Government has to intervene to maintain economic stability, another important aspect, right? At the time of recession, right? We have discussed recession in detail with regard to Great Depression of the 1930s, and also again, of course, you can see Asian crisis in 1998, and also 2000 financial crisis in USA, etc. You can see that much more demand for public goods and services from the government because of the market failure in Sri Lanka. Because now, because the Sri Lanka situation is quite different, maybe citizens are looking at the government to get more and more services because our private sector, our market has not been able to provide such goods and services. And also you can see market failure in our situation. Maybe you can see monopoly, you can see oligopoly, we can be lack of the information, and also the pricing system, etc. Lot of you can see, and also in addition pollution, right? Pollution that is to be corrected by the government concern. Likewise, you can see lot of issues with regard to market over here, right? And also when you look at the functions of the government, I think yeah, functions of the government, you can say Musgrave, that's Richard Musgrave. He was the founding father of the public finance and policy, and also he has identified three budgetary functions for the government. Three budgetary functions for the government, right? And also three function, allocative function, distribution function, and also stability function. Three functions. The allocation functions, of course, you can say allocation of certain, provision of social good that the market will not provide, right? Social good like defense, national security, etc., highways, public road, public park, etc. Because government that such thing government will have to provide, because such social good, you can say the characteristic we have discussed in relation to public good, this characteristic of non-rivalry and non-excludability. Because if that is the case, of course, there is no demand in the market, right? Then, of course, private firms do not provide such good because there is no cost, there is no demand, right? Hence, government has to raise revenue through taxation as matter of public policy, right? In order to provide those goods, this allocative function, then of course government has to raise revenue, and also that's a matter of public policy. You can see government has, in our situation, of course, it is somewhat controversial because government has increases even direct taxes from 6 to 36%. Because of that, you can see with regard to uh, people who are drawing higher salaries, and also they have objected, still that objection is being recorded even now. And also what has happened, then of course they have, some of them have left the government service, and also that has created problem for the government. On the one hand, government will have to raise revenue. On the other hand, the payers, taxpayers, and also they are protesting, they are suffering because of that. Is another problem, right? And government, some other, will have to raise revenue with the view to providing this social good. That's one. Then, of course, it's I think 10 o'clock now. We have to discuss, maybe once we meet the next time, we will continue the discussion on the function of the government, and also what Masdev has said with regard to to distributor function and stability function. Once we meet, we will discuss next time. Okay. We'll be meeting at 7 o'clock today, right? 7 o'clock, and then of course we will continue the discussions. Okay. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Right. Okay. You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.